When the Galaxy S22 Ultra was released, frankly, I was a little bit nervous. See, I was a big fan of the Galaxy S21 Ultra, and I thought it was a great flagship phone that covered just about every single base. And I wasn't the biggest fan of the idea of the S Pen. But after using a Galaxy S22 Ultra for the last couple months, do I think it was a good successor to the S21 Ultra and worth the upgrade? Let's talk about it. This is NOISO, and this is Galaxy S21 Ultra versus the S22 Ultra. Now this is going to be a relatively quick video. I just want to highlight some of the big differences here because this experience has changed in many ways, but is largely otherwise the same. So obviously the big difference is in the S Pen. If you are a fan of the Note series of old, then you will be a fan of the S22 Ultra. So that shouldn't be a question. But if, like me, you're less of a fan of the S Pen, then generally these become a lot closer in experience. Now I will say that the S22 Ultra's design was not my favorite when I first started using it because I actually prefer the smoother curves of the S21 Ultra's sidewalls, and then therefore the ergonomics for me are quite a bit better. Now I was surprised to see just how drastically the designs were different between these two devices, as I expected through leaks that we'd see a relatively similar design, but obviously we don't have the same sort of smooth camera bump that kind of curves into the sidewalls as before. Instead, the camera bump doesn't exist anymore, with each of the lenses having their own sort of raised bump outside of the back panel. After staring at the designs of these two phones for way too long, I actually think I prefer the more uniform design of the S22 Ultra rather than kind of the blocky design of the camera bump on the S21 Ultra. Flip them over and you get basically what we would have seen as a comparison had Samsung released a Note series at the same time as an S series. They are very, very different in the front design in that the S22 Ultra has a lot squarer shape similar to other Notes. I generally like having the fuller canvas without any sort of cut off edges for content on the sides. And the camera cutout does appear smaller, but I'm not sure if that's just because the display feels bigger. All in, the experience of watching this display somehow is even better than the already great display on the S21 Ultra. And then there's the cameras, and frankly I thought the S21 Ultra's cameras were perfectly good and quite impressive in most cases, but then the S22 cameras just are even that much better. It seems like there's more consistency around quality in just about any sort of shooting scenario. I found that the telephoto pictures that I take a lot of with the kind of ultra zoom lens turned out more consistently clear and sharp, whether that be post-processing or the actual quality of the sensor itself. I'm not quite sure, but frankly it doesn't even matter. This is more reliable than the S21 Ultra. That's not to say you still can't take great pictures with the S21 Ultra, it just won't stand up quite as well. One thing that I'll mention about the S22 Ultra that I was worried about is because of the dedicated compartment for the S Pen, I was worried that the battery life would not be good. And while I can't say that it's bad, it is worse than I had hoped. Generally, I get worse battery life than my S21 Ultra, which was a battery champ when I used it. And I think if I had a choice, I would have preferred the entire back or internals to be dedicated to the battery rather than having the dedicated compartment. But maybe people get enough use out of the S Pen that doesn't matter. Overall, I really love the experience of using the Galaxy S22 Ultra, and something about it feels like a really substantial upgrade over its predecessor. But in most cases, if you haven't used both these phones, then maybe you wouldn't really notice the difference all that much. Yes, technically the Snapdragon 8 Gen 1 chip of the S22 Ultra is going to be faster than the Snapdragon 888 of the previous gen, but that doesn't really make a big difference in most day-to-day use. Might only show up years and years down the line. Where I think the biggest difference might be found is in pricing. Now, I am not aware of any place that you can get a brand new S21 Ultra nowadays, and I wouldn't really recommend it anyways. In terms of refurbished models between the two, you might see $200, $300 difference in pricing. And frankly, that's just about the difference that I might pay to get the newer experience. A lot of times, the newest generation phone is at a significant premium just because a lot of people want it. And therefore, if you see a large gap between these phones and you don't really care about having the newest, latest, greatest model, then frankly, I'd say go with the S21 Ultra and wait to see what Samsung has next in line for, be it next year, the S23 Ultra, or their foldables that should be coming pretty soon here. Thank you for watching NOISO. I hope you like this quick comparison between the S21 Ultra and the S22 Ultra. If you did, be sure to let me know down in the comments, because any sort of recommendations on what sort of content you want to see is really helpful for me. Thanks for watching, and I'll catch you next time.